What's Folkestone Triennial like, Dan? Well, I'm glad you asked. Imagine you're not from around here and you got off the train here at Folkestone Central Station. First thing you see is that Folkestone is an art school. Well, that's an interesting statement. Wonder what that's all about. I reckon we're going to find out. So walking down through the station, when we get to the ticket barriers, you can pick yourself up a map, and now you know where we're going, but don't worry about it, you're with me. So we'll walk out through the doors. First thing we'll see, billboard, double edge. That is the name and the theme of this year's Triennial, and Folkestone is an art school. That same declaration once again. And what are all these hands here? Well, they're local people's hands of all different generations. They were put here by Strange Cargo Arts. They're an awesome local community arts charity, and they also transformed this bridge in 2014, Triennial, to turn this rather dingy bridge into a sort of portal of good luck. It's called the luckiest place on earth. There was a coin exchange. There was some local people here who were immortalised in 3D printouts. That one's my mum. Hi, mum. And they're holding sort of symbols of good luck and their statements as to why they think they're lucky. My mum says she's lucky because the people who she loves most love her back. True that, Ma. Anyway. What's this here in this window? Oh, it's a shell sculpture. It's by Amelia Picker. She's created this artwork called Souvenir. Here's another one. And they're shell sculptures in people's windows all around the town. Bit of a treasure hunt to find them. And if the triennial was called Double Edge, I guess this is dealing with the edge between art and craft. Where does craft become art? Well, this one seems to be more art because it's sort of satisfying the usual conventions. Look, it's cast in bronze. But then, you know, just around the corner, here, we'll see some more just in windows, just normal shells stuck together. What do you make of these? I don't make much for myself. Oh, well, you know, can't win them all. Let's go on. And I don't think we'll bother looking for any more Amelia Pickers. There's loads of them. If you like this sort of thing, you can find loads. Oh, go on then. We did one more because we were walking right past it. So around the corner, and we're following the sort of route of the Penn Valley, but we're going to make a little detour here. What's this? Well, it's like a traditional hop garden jazzed up with some sort of colourful acrylic. It's in the footprint of an old gasworks. This site has been abandoned for some time. It's going to be built on with houses, but it's too contaminated at the moment. But anyway, this is a 2014 work by Jill Bradley. She's got local connections. She made this beautiful contemplative space, and because it's still in good nick, they decided to keep it open for now. Oh, and here's the first of our lovely friendly hosts we're going to meet today. Hosts are all the different artworks. They like a good chinwag, so they're there for you really. If you've got any questions about the artworks, whether it's conceptual or logistical or about the history or about directions to the nearest loo, whatever. I'm lingering here because this is an amazing viaduct, the world's highest arched brick viaduct, no less, opened in the mid-19th century. So as we walk along this road, still pretty much following the course of the Pent stream, we're going to go down this nondescript little dead end, and we're going to find this. What is that? It's the mosque. Not many people, hardly anyone really locally knew that there was a mosque here for like nearly 30 years. Islamic Cultural Centre. And so the artist Hoi Chong Wong has transformed it from a anonymous, if you were being cynical, you could say sort of clandestine little building tucked away behind these bars, and transformed it into a sort of shining beacon in the community. He has used scaffolding to create a facade more in keeping with traditional Islamic architecture. Look, you can see it from all over the place. And why do we usually scaffolding? Well, to renovate something that needs fixing. Maybe he's fixing the reputation of Muslims in the community. Need I remind you that Folkestone is like, well, UKIP. Well, now though, the building kind of just radiates tranquility, harmony, growth. What's that? 20 feet above street level is another curious hidden sort of place that is connected to religion. It's a Baptist burial ground. Too much to say about the history. I'll just say that local artist Emily Peasgood has created an audio installation, a 5-part choral piece that is triggered as you walk around the site. The lyrics of the piece are based upon the lives of some of the people buried here that the artist found out in her research. She's called it Halfway to Heaven, rather apt I think for this stranded floating graveyard above our heads. Now then, this is our next stop, the Cube building, the Adult Education Centre. Oh, mind you, as we go there, let's just check this out. Another leftover from the 2014 Triennial. This is called Pent Houses, a bunch of water towers that plot the course of the Pent stream. It was by Diane Dever and Jonathan Wright, both of whom feature this year, so we'll find out a bit more about them in a minute. First, 1947 by Sinta Tantra. She has wrapped this building with forms and colours, inspired partly from a poster from 1947 advertising rail travel to Folkestone, as well as other things quite eclectic like this street is. Now, here's the first of a series of gilded boats on poles that run along Tontine Street. It's called Fleet on Foot. It's by Jonathan Wright. Just mentioned him, didn't I? And they immortalise the fishing boats that are registered in Folkestone, still operate out of Folkestone Harbour. Quick diversion into the Courthouse building, the theatre in the heart of the Creative Quarter, which is also the visitor centre, which is also an artwork called The Clearing by Studio Ben Allen. They put this together. Oh, hello, happy host. They put this together at very short notice. It's sort of like references Gothic architecture, although with slightly cleaner lines, more like trees, more like a feeling of ascension. They've just transformed the place basically to a nice welcoming place to be, also a place to find out information about the Triennial, also a place to buy some merch. Oh, and what's this through the window? Heaven is a place where nothing ever happens, that says. I should have done it at night, shouldn't I, so you'd be able to actually see it. It looks partly elegant and partly tacky, really, like a seaside resort kind of fairground fairground attraction tacky. And it does sort of encapsulate a little bit of a seaside resort sense of ennui. That's right, ennui, bit French. Well, we can see France from where we are, can't we? So that hot slice of melancholia, or cold slice, was from Nathan Coley, from the very first Triennial, I think. There it was in the background as we looked at another boat. We can see on each pole there is information about the tides and about plimsoll lines. Samuel Plimsoll is actually from Folkestone. We love a claim to fame. While we're coming along here, I'm just going to show you B&B space, because that's home of Matt Rowe. He's an awesome local artist. Upstairs in the studio, you've got Tom Shedden. He's a brilliant painter. They're my favourite two Folkestone artists. I thought I'd give a little shout out. On the subject of local artists and grassroots arts provision, this is the Folkestone is an Art School space by Bob and Roberta Smith. There he is on the screen blowing a trumpet. His declaration from Folkestone is an Art School was really about changing the way we look at the town. A lot of people ask to create a foundation, why don't you make an art school? Well, their answer is one, why don't you? And two, well, maybe we sort of have. We've kind of created the conditions under which you can make art, you can learn about art, you can sort of be steeped in art from an early age. And the artist has created a directory of local makers that do sort of workshops, and you can tap into that. That's by Michael Craig Martin. It's an instantly recognisable pop-in sort of graphic of a universal and democratic object. A light bulb says light, it says enlightenment, it says inspiration, and this is the creative quarter, so let's go up the old high street. Nice place to get some inspiration really from local businesses. This one's Feral Child, it's Bohemian Clothing, and in the window local artists have done some wicked artwork. It looks a little bit Basquiat, a little bit Picasso. Trouble boy. Let's move on past everyone's favourite vintage clothing shop, bounce past the music shop, past drink for all your alcohol needs. On the left here in a minute we're going to get Steep Street. It's a lovely book-lined cafe. We're just going to do a little quick diversion here into the top of Payers Park, and where I've stopped just out of shot on my left is Outer Space Bar, best place to go in the summer in my book. But what the hell is that? Well, obviously I'm going to tell you, aren't I? It's Holiday Homes by Richard Woods, or this is one of them. There's a whole bunch of these dotted around the town. We're going to find a load of them, so I won't bang on about it too much now. Suffice to say, it's a cartoonish emblem of a home, and we're back in Payers Park. We've got walkways jutting out into space. We've got railings terminating prematurely. It's sort of like a series of terraces down this steep slope. It was created for the 2014 Triennial, and it referenced also the Pent stream that ran along here. It had hemp ropes because hemp was cultivated on the banks. Also cattle were on the banks here, so things like that. Like there's this seat, it looks a little bit like some weird clamp you'd stick a cow in. All the walkways and ramps kind of remind me of big agriculture. Also the periscope and the logs there reminds me of shipbuilding, waterborne transport. Hello host, looking after Rego 23's artwork, The Earth's Oldest Satellite. References the moon. I suppose it's about orientating yourself. Makes us rethink our position and our importance. So Payers Park, look at all these big steps. Kind of reminds me of weirs or sort of river management systems, or and docks, jetties. Very subtle though, and not at all didactic about who should use it and how they should use that space. That's A Hare and a Greyhound by Sophie Ryder. Onwards and upwards. And on the right here, there used to be a rock shop. You used to be able to watch the blokes rolling out the seaside rock. I'm capable of nostalgia, even if I'm not as I don't fetishise the past like some people around here do. Onwards and upwards, like I said. So this is a place where you get loads of foodie establishments. You might want to refuel around here, and you probably want to go there as well. Hot Salvation Records, big up. Now, coming around the corner, a different kind of rock. A rock modelled on one found down locally at the Warren. And our lovely host here is about to usher us in. It's basically a really over-theatrical way of showing us a really mundane object. It's a battery, although it's no ordinary battery. It is, instead of using lithium ion, it uses mushroom. So it's far more sustainable and readily available and cheap and easy to produce and biodegradable. The artists are Lithuanian scientists. They've been working... Look, it's connected to this lamppost because when they visited, the lamppost was on during the day and off during the night. That's very Folkestone, isn't it? So we got a prototype of sustainable energy, and what I like a lot about this is the way it's situated at the top of this row of steps. Kind of reminds me of the myth of Sisyphus, condemned to forever roll the rock up the mountain, the endless, arduous task. Maybe it's a little comment on humanity and progress, science, things like that. Like, do we ever really progress at all? We've just been through St Ian's with past the church, through the graveyard, and now we're at the Bale. Another place of great historical significance in Folkestone. Apparently St Ian's would fill this pond by making water flow uphill. Yeah, chinny reckon. Just a nice place to drink a couple of cans of special brew, innit? Oh dear, a little one's lost their glove. Well, all is not as it seems. It's actually a bronze sculpture by Tracy Emin. She left a load of these around the town during the very first Triennial. I suppose they're poignant little moments of detritus, lost childhood. It's about Folkestone's high teenage pregnancy rate, much like Emin's hometown of Margate round the coast. We're going to go down these steps where I was attacked as a child by an Alsatian, and we're going to see a major Folkestone landmark, the monstrosity that is the Bursting Hotel. Sort of like a time warp. It's like Phoenix Nights going on in there. And what's that in the distance? It's a bell. Right, we're going to come back to that because I really like that. Now, down these steps, what we'll find when we get to the bottom, we'll be back in the creative quarter. See that? Michael Craig Martin's light bulb, remember? So let's go across the road here, past the fountain on the right, with all the kids playing in it, and we're going to go under this arch. And, actually, the first thing we're going to see is one of those Amelia Picker sculptures, and in the shell shop that I guess largely inspired this piece of work. It's sort sort of like sits right at home in there, doesn't it? Among the other real souvenirs. Real. Okay, so is it saying something about authenticity as well? Yeah, probably. Artifice. In the harbour, look, what's that there? Another Richard Woods holiday home in a sort of bizarre, outlandish and impractical place, and another one. So let's go through the harbour, you get yourself some cockles and whelks, and let's check this out. This is from 2014 Triennial. It's called Steve. I guess that's derived from the word stevedore. It does seem to reference shipping, shipbuilding. It's a kind of abandoned hulk, industrial looking, but at the same time as man-made, it's sort of organic as well, in a way, because it looks a bit like a shell, you know, or some sort of mollusk. Those little benches there are Steve's children, by the way, is how we're invited to think about them. I like the way it feels kind of half deconstructed and like all the holes through it, sort of permeable, you know, lets the weather in and out, but at the same time it's sort of protective feeling, and the sort of weathered material kind of wears the environment on its sleeve, if you like. So let's go along and we'll see here at the Sunny Sands a kind of recreation of Copenhagen's Little Mermaid. This is put here by Cornelia Parker at a 2011 Triennial, and that's a local woman there who's been immortalised by her. But back to this year's Triennial and a tricky, mathsy, technical sort of work by Gary Woodley. I think he calls them impingements. He's basically kind of projected into this architectural space some geometric forms, some cubes, and he's painted the parts where they would intersect with the architecture. Are we supposed to imagine being encompassed or enveloped by those forms as we stand in the space? Don't know. Oh, that's popped up. I think he's a famous street artist, but you'll have to forgive me for forgetting what his name is. Not really into that. You know, it's a bit too much like a one-line joke to me. A bit sort of like trite and resolved, really. Sort of doesn't hold the attention. But we're going to go down here to something that I think is quite the opposite. I like this. It gets a bit sci-fi, doesn't it? A bit like Warp Speed. But what we're about to see is an Antony Gormley. There he is. It is just one of a series called Another Time. And he's got a brother across the bay at the harbour arm. We'll see him in a little while. But yeah, I mean, it's different from that street art that I denigrated slightly. In that, you know, contemporary art like this is doing the opposite. It's slowing you down. It's not giving you a trite, simple, concise message. It's not just conveying one viewpoint to you. It's far more ambiguous, far more mysterious. Didn't Duchamp say something like there is no answer because there is no question? Well, if there's any kind of question here, I guess it's an interrogation of what it is to be human, what it is to inhabit our bodies. Talking about double edge as a theme, you know, the edge, well, it's a double of the artist's body because it's a cast of his body, and the edge, you know, the edge of experience, the edge of your body and the outside world. They stand sentry to the passing of time, and there's something poignant about the way they silently endure the inundation of the waves, much like that footpath, in fact, choked and overwhelmed by nature. Let's head up the East Cliff to Siren by Mark Schmitz and Dolga Sir Odd. Looks like a weird alien technology dropped here on the cliff tops. I think they reference sound mirrors, which were like a primitive type of technology for detecting enemy planes, and you find them along the coastline here. Sound mirrors were redundant within a couple of years of being developed, I think, because radar was invented. But this is far more playful and fun than those sort of monolithic concrete structures. It does actually amplify sound both ways, so I guess it bridges the gap between the person stood on the edge and the world beyond. Sirens, yeah, that references mythology, doesn't it? Sirens kind of luring randy sailors to their death on the rocks. Here's a new sign for the Warren, and it's festooned with crap in typical Folkestone fashion. And the Warren, which is this away, is like every Folkestone resident's favourite bit of coastline, probably. It's quite inaccessible, but that's what keeps it so good, because it's very wild and untamed. That's the National Coast Watch hut. They're keeping an eye on the shipping lanes. There's the Warren, not very good visibility. You'd usually be able to see Dover from there, clearly. But that's what we're going towards now. It is the piece that a lot of art lovers, myself included, probably love the most, although some of the more closed-minded residents amongst us hate the most. Anyway, here's another Richard Woods house. They remind me of rough sleepers dotted around like this. Bit ironic. Well, not ironic. I mean, it's a sort of inbuilt into the artwork, isn't it? It's about housing, the housing crisis. Also about sort of unscrupulous property developers and agents that will just stick a house anywhere, no matter how insensitive and impractical. Hold that thought though, because we've just reached the site of the Roman Villa archaeological dig, and this artwork we're about to see in a second by Alex Hartley does deal with Iron Age millstones called querns that were made and found here at this location. They are filling this structure here, this cage-like structure, and look, it's cantilevered off the edge of the cliff. So as the cliff erodes, as cliffs do, those quernstones are going to drop out of the bottom of the structure. Those quernstones, which are at the moment are kind of like anchoring it to our green and pleasant land, and in this way the whole thing acts as a kind of geological timepiece, like a big hourglass. The natural environment then having dominion over us and our man-made nonsense. It puts geology and also physics into the spotlight. The physics of balance, you know, it's sort of a palpable peril to this. Does it remind you a little bit of the Italian Job? It's using the kind of fencing found at the Calais jungle migrant camp. Some people think this is a right blight on the landscape. Well, maybe he's saying something about how we're blighting good old Blighty by sort of sequestering ourselves off, Brexiting ourselves off, keeping people out, keeping ourselves in. Our heritage, with no room to flex or grow, is doomed to fall by the wayside, either to the relentless entropy of the universe or to just progress. Check out that little movie magic transition. We're back at the Michael Craig Martin, we're back at the fountain, we're back in the harbour, and this time we're going to go up these steps and across the old railway bridge that used to serve at Folkestone's port. It used to take the Orient Express there, it used to take holiday goers, it used to take First World War soldiers, of course, the main point of departure for the continent and, you know, the front line. And this part is a swing bridge. It's all been very recently restored. You can only walk across this from the opening weekend of this year's Triennial. A hell of a lot of development going on down here as part of Folkestone's cultural regeneration. Next place we're going to go is what's left of the Customs House building before it was bombed to oblivion. Oh, by the way, there's another view of Richard Woods' house. So there it is, Customs House. And it's been transformed into the Urban Room by Diane Dever and the decorators for this year's Triennial. Sort of a place invites you to come and reflect on Folkestone's past, how particularly the urban environment, the built environment, how we've got to where we are now, sort of geographically, geologically, culturally, blah, 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 industrially, and therefore where we might be going in the future. So it's particularly good for local people to reminisce and to talk about their fate, and also good for visitors because, you know, the Triennial is an open air exhibition. It takes you all around the town. That's the beauty of it. And so that urban room kind of serves to give context to the visitor as to where it is that they're walking about. Here's some nice pink furniture, and there are pink lines drawn in the car park to sort of show the footprint of the old building because it was massive. Anyway, we're going out onto the harbour arm. They've renovated it, tried to keep a lot of the original character, but it is the middle class hipster parade. Well, I'm a middle class hipster then, and I suppose, because I love it. I love the music, I love the food, and I love the feeling of community. I came back when the tide was out so we could get a proper look at this second Antony Gormley sculpture, standing here in the loading bay as he is, looking out at the sea, watching the world go by. What's he looking at? What's he looking for? Is he just contemplating his life? Or is he look out? Is he standing sentry? You know, is there danger coming across the way? We are on the sort of threshold of the country, and one of the things that probably makes Folkestone quite an attractive place for artists to come and make work is because we're like a microcosm of, you know, bigger socio-political issues. Oh, weather is a third to place and time. That was an artwork put here at the 2014 Triennial. Ian Hamilton Finley, is that his name? It kind of makes a coordinate of weather, if you like, and well, you certainly get a lot of weather out here. You kind of feel like you're right out at sea at the end of this harbour arm, and the harbour arm certainly does locate you in the sense that, you know, you come to the end of the arm, you turn around, you look at Folkestone from a perspective that you'd never usually see. And coming along here, we're about to look over to the left to the sort of more affluent, upmarket west end of town, and in the foreground there's a couple of artworks that we're going to see. Well, you couldn't quite make them out there, but don't worry about it. We're going to get up close and personal down these steps onto the old train platform. I believe Gandhi has graced this platform, as well as hundreds of thousands of troops, of course. You know, a lot of people are still really nostalgic for when it was a working port, but, you know, that ship has sailed, hasn't it, so to speak. We might have lost transport and mostly fishing, but hopefully we've got a new viable economy in the town, and that's creative industries. Anyway, this is by Sol Calero. She is a Venezuelan artist. She's interested in cultural stereotypes. She's put a little slice of Latin America here in Folkestone for us. Well, this, by the way, beachcombers seem to have created their own little gallery since it's been here. But local people mostly made this pavilion. Then they shipped it to WOMAD Festival, where it was people carried on working on it, decorating it. And now it's a shared space in Folkestone. People can put on their own events there and just gather. There's things like salsa classes, yoga classes. This, by the way, is called Out of Tune. It's by A.K. Dolven from a couple of triennials ago. It's a 16th century bell removed from a church for being out of tune with the others. It stood on a very desolate expanse of concrete, which was once the Rotunda amusement site, so it just hung there, mute and redundant. A pretty poignant metaphor, really. As you can see, though, the site's now looking pretty lovely because they've landscaped it in preparation for a new housing development, so the artwork's lost a little something, but still. Happy to see it still here, and happy to see this next pavilion. It's the Jelly Mold Pavilion by Lubena Himid. She's up for this year's Turner Prize. The form of it references the domed Rotunda amusement arcade building that used to stand here. That was my first job when I was about 16. It was brutal. Slave labour. Although that's easy for me to say slave labour, isn't it, from my position of white privilege. This is referencing real slave labour because it's referencing the sugar trade. As you can see, it's based on a Victorian jelly mould, and it's decorated with what looks to me like cocoa beans. It looks like it's supported on barley sugar legs, borders on a saccharine sort of feeling. Really gives me a bit of nostalgia for old sort of candy floss fueled days down the Rotunda as a kid. You know, toffee apples, you know, those freshly fried sugary donuts with the aftertaste of ancient frying oil. Even the floor of it looks a bit to me like shortbread. I suppose we're supposed to reflect a bit on the past here. You ever heard that saying, the past is the only dead thing that smells sweet? We can be proud of our heritage and look back fondly on the past, but we also should recognise that, it does involve colonialism and that it does involve slavery, the sugar plantations. So while Himid has created us quite generously this lovely contemplative space to hang out on the beach and reflect on our lovely happy lives, she's also mentioned before that beaches kind of remind her of beaches from which Africans departed aboard slave ships. Let's truck on along this lovely new boardwalk towards the coastal park. Oh, we're going to see another Richard Woods house. Here it is. It looks a little bit like a body washed up on a beach, doesn't it, this one? You've probably got tragic images of the victims of the migrant crisis seared into your brain, same as me. Globalisation bringing us all sorts of benefits, is also reminding us of the harsh realities of global inequality, bringing that right to our shores, quite literally. Anyway, let's move along, because we're Westerners, so we can just move effortlessly and flippantly along to the next distraction, and what we're going to see is nothing at all. This is meant to be Bill Woodrow's contribution to the Triennial, but I am distinctly unimpressed. There's nothing here. Some sort of problem with the fabricators, I think, but that's not good enough. Well, I'm not going to talk about what the intention is behind the artwork. Instead, we can take a second to check this out. Richard Wilson's contribution to the very first Triennial. It's called 18 Holes. It's using parts of the old crazy golf course that stood at the Rotunda site to make a tribute to that and tribute to the beach huts that line this part of the coast. My mum rents a beach hut along here. She swims in the sea nearly every day in the summer. If you live in Folkestone and you never swim in the sea, then you are dead inside. Now, where's Anderson framing for this bit of lovely beach hut action? And our final bit of beach hut action for the day. This is by Pablo Bronstein, a weird lighthouse he left here at the last Triennial. He is paying homage to the quintessentially English architectural vocabulary of 18th century Baroque architect Nicholas Hawksmoor. Can you tell I'm reading that off the website? I couldn't remember anything about it, sorry. I think there was none of that kind of architecture left in Folkestone, so he's plugged the gap by leaving this here. Looks a bit like an oversized Happy Meal toy to me. I'm falling behind. We've just been zooming through the coastal park, all the kids' play area and all that. I would have killed to have had that when I was a kid growing up in Folkestone. It's wicked. Just as I would have killed to have had all this creative stuff when I was a teenager in Folkestone. But we got it now, so that's all good. Oh yeah, that was the amphitheatre we saw, and now we're going up through the zigzag path through the weird little caves. Richard Woods' house, one of them was sited on this bank originally, but I think they had some slight problems with landslide. More zigzag path, which is an entirely artificial construction, but hey, I like it anyway. And when we get to the top, what's wrong with that clock? Something that's wrong with it. It's only got 10 hours. Ruth Ewan put this here a couple of triennials ago. It's to do with a utopian attempt by the French in the 18th century to abandon the normal calendar and use like 10 hours with 100 minutes with 100 seconds in it. That clock kind of tells the right time. This, by the way, is by Will Kwan. It's about power structures. Each panel here depicts the hierarchical structure of an organisation. One is MI6, one is a bank, and one is a university. It's fun to try and figure out which would be which. He's riffing off the architecture of this vinery and referencing chinoiserie. Hope I'm saying that right. Back when England was the workshop of the world, our upper classes would mimic Chinese aesthetic and interior design. Well, things have changed around a bit since then, haven't they? Power's swapped, and now through those panels you can see, of course, the shipping channel, where cargo ships transport goods, all, of course, manufactured in the East.
2nd of March, 1915. The Lees Hotel, Folkestone. It feels quite strange to be settled down again in one place after all that tramping, which seems rather like a dream.
You should have heard the cheers when we were all ordered ashore. We were all glad.
Dearest, it was so nice to get your little note, so unexpectedly. I did love it.
I shall sadly do our best for God, King, and country, and the dear ones that I love. I can't say any more. It would be useless.
Boltanski's The Whispers, letters to and from servicemen who passed through here in the First World War. This is David Shrigley's lamppost. I'm comparing and contrasting it a bit with real lampposts on the Lees. What he did is he got a mate of his to look at our lamppost for 40 seconds, then go away and recreate it from memory. I do wonder whether Shrigley expected it to come out a bit weirder and wonkier and wackier than it actually is. You know what he's like, he's pure jokes. But it's actually come out pretty accurately, really. I guess that says something about our shared cultural heritage, the way we're sort of steeped in it. We know what it looks like. And I suppose the artwork says something about authenticity, originality, creativity, memory, and it's cute in two senses of the word, really. Cute like a con trick, as well as cute like sweet. And this, meanwhile, is a colour wheel by Spencer Finch from 2011. Very interactive, makes you try and line up the colour correctly with the sea. I mean, the sea changes colour so massively from day to day, hour by hour. I guess it sensitises you to that and brings the world more violently upon your nervous system. I think I'm paraphrasing Francis Bacon there. Didn't he say something like that in his interview with David Sylvester? This is Earth Peace. It's by Yoko Ono. And if you look up here at the top of the Grand Hotel hotel. Can you see a flashing light on my crappy camera? Oh, I think you can, can't you? It's beaming out the message Earth Peace in Morse code to our neighbours across the waves. It's another one from the last triennial, theme of Lookout. Well, the Grand Hotel and its neighbour the Metropole stand as very imposing kind of monuments to Folkestone's glorious past as a very fashionable and aristocratic seaside resort. And as we reach the very end of the Leeds Promenade, we're going to look at one final thing, the last of Richard Woods' holiday homes. I've really enjoyed looking at these playful motifs of houses. Empty houses, mind you, aren't they? And that's important. I mean, there's a massive housing crisis in this country. I'm very aware of it. In my day job, I deal with homeless people, and it's a terrible situation. There's no fault of their own most of the time. And also, of course, in Folkestone now we've got the whole gentrification issue, because, you know, now we're all trendy, aren't we? So it's all desirable to other people. So we've got DFLs all over the place. And I think Richard Woods is saying something here about second homes, you know, holiday homes that just sit empty most of the time and drive up prices for normal local people. Anyway, is this a load of old rubbish, this whole exhibition? Why don't you have your say in the comments below? I do hope you enjoyed my silly little tour. Maybe you learned one or two things about the exhibition, maybe one or two things about Folkestone itself. Anyway, I'm Cream Crackered. Bye!